Greg and I just got out of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the 8th installment of a franchise both Greg and I hold near and dear. We went to this exact same event for 7 a couple years ago and left in a tizzy. Both of us not feeling as we wanted to feel, both enjoying 7, but not as much as we felt the collective did. I have the opposite experience on this one, and I'm curious to know Greg's thoughts. I feel like a reporter on the streets. To you, Greg.
I would say overall, I liked the film. I didn't love the movie as much as I perhaps wanted to. Kind of a sentiment that was sort of being echoed, and you could feel it throughout because a good amount of people were kind of leaving within the first hour of this film. The first hour, I think, is a little bit rough of an experience, especially the first 20 to 30 minutes is pretty rough in my opinion. However, it is a film that as it progresses, it gets better as it goes. I do not think it needed to be this long. I think there's actually a good amount of stuff that they could have cut. But I'll say this, man. In the trailers, they sort of tease the submarine sequence. They've been heavily teasing the plane sequence. The plane sequence is, dude, that's got to be one
of Mission alone.
It's got to be one of the best Mission Impossible sequences ever.
When I now list the great stunts, that will absolutely be in the top 5.
What'd you think of the submarine sequence?
So the submarine sequence was so interestingly claustrophobic, and it was so dizzying and disorienting that I thought many times, how does Tom Cruise know what direction the world is? And
yeah.
It was really impressive that they were so immersive that I kept getting disoriented and kept trying to track. It effectively makes you feel like you're part of the stunt in a really special way. And I love the inversion of water to air by having the 2 big stunts be claustrophobic and then exposing. Mm-hmm. So from heights down to depths, that was really cool. My brief thoughts since Greg gave his, I do want to say that the first act is far and away the weakest of the 3, and it is at a disservice to the film itself. I personally like this one more than 7. I personally thought as this film progressed, not only did it get better, but it actually, the second 2 acts cement itself as some of my favorite of this post Mission Impossible 5 era. I feel like Rogue Nation and onward is a different vibe than Ghost Protocol and forward. And as the post 5 vibes, I love the second 2 acts here. I thought that the CGI elements that bothered me in the first film, some of the odd jump cuts and ADR that weren't at their fault because they were shooting during COVID, they had a lot of things to navigate around. It affected my suspension of disbelief. This franchise doesn't work if you don't buy that Tom Cruise is actually putting himself in peril. And even when he's riding on a train, if there's CGI around the train, my brain goes, I'm not as excited as other things. This film doesn't have those elements from 7 that bothered me, and it enhances things from all 7 prior films in that second and third act. Plus, it has a lot of love for 3, which is my favorite.
Okay. Talk about, I'll bring it back to the submarine sequence. The submarine sequence was a really unique thing because I couldn't quite tell what was CGI and what was practical.
Yes.
And I found the pressure in my head occurring. It was a thing where I felt like I was actually within the sequence. I felt submerged into the sequence because I could feel like the pressure in my head kind of clogging up. And it's one of the most unique sequences that the Mission Impossible franchise has done because I don't know how they would possibly orchestrate that sequence. I was so fascinated by how did they stage this? How did they direct this scene?
How much was practical? How much was augmented? How much did Tom Cruise submerge himself? How did he breathe for these long takes?
Yeah.
It does so many things. And for me, it was the back of my skull. The base of my skull was tightening because I'd been so tense for so long. Your boy got the bends.
Yeah. Plane sequence was one where I was genuinely scared when I was watching it. One of the unique things about this installment, I think this is the only one of the Mission Impossible movies that is a straight up horror movie. This film is a horror movie. It has more of this psychological terror. It has these elements that are very religious commentary as well, which surprised me. It also dealt on the connection that we have with artificial intelligence, how it's causing a disconnect with humanity, how we are starting to worship this stuff. And there's a constant paranoia and fraughtness. I think there's suspense in the other ones. I think there's a lot of tension in the other ones. This one does a lot of things that I was they're going for a straight up menacing horror film, right from how I would say is the stakes in this one genuinely does feel like the biggest mission that Ethan Hunt has ever had to do. It is actually imposing, and it does feel like, oh my God, the world is really at stake here. There's a lot of movies where world ending is the biggest threat, and it's kind of an easy threat in an action movie. This one I really sort of bought into.
I also think the stakes and peril you're talking about here are interesting in a franchise that starts out being called Mission Impossible. It's kind of become a running joke of like, more like Mission Improbable. And this one does feel continuously impossible. And those moments of like, will they survive? Who will die? All those things, like you feel those stakes in a real way. Like I genuinely thought everyone could die at any moment in these stakes. And this long into the franchise, I love that it can make you feel like that. And it manages to escalate without losing the plot. I feel like one of my favorite franchises, Fast and the Furious, in some of the later installments has kind of lost what it's meant to be. This one felt like it found who it was meant to be, what it was meant to get back to. And it does something really interesting where at points there are not only actors that are super popular right now that appear and they almost feel like, oh my God, it's that guy, in a way that like an Ocean's movie. Like they assemble an IMF team full of incredible actors working right now that are stupendous, but also it references the old films in a way that feels like it's a legacy film. It feels like the 8th installment in something, as opposed to some of the other missions that feel like, oh, we want to do this type of stunt. What do we build around that? Oh, we want to go here. What do we build around that? Which are great as well in a series, but this one feels like a beautiful culmination of all roads led to this, to bring it back to Fast and the Furious. And some of the acting in this is, I think, some of the best. I think Simon Pegg here is pouring his heart out. I think what we get out of Tom Cruise, I think the beauty of Tom Cruise is his action and his intensity, his sensibilities physically and mentally, and I think he brings so much great pathos to him caring about his team while also delivering Tom Cruise sprints and stunt work. And like it's all of them doing their best. It's just that first act, it takes a bit to get through to get to their best.
Yeah, I think this one's rooted in character more than Dead Reckoning. I would say like I like this one more than Dead Reckoning. I think some of the flaws, though, that I personally have with Dead Reckoning still do carry over into this film. They were kicking us out. We had to move over here, so we'll finish it up here. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, I think some of the problems that I kind of have with Dead Reckoning do carry over into this film. Like, everyone's a really great actor in this. Everyone's really committed and doing a really great job for what they're doing. I do feel that a lot of the writing, however, is still, I think a lot of the movie's kind of devoid of the personality that has made a lot of the earlier installments great. Like I get they're going for a little bit something more serious, a little bit more stoic. And as I was watching it, I did think of Fast and Furious, but without any of the self-awareness that I think the movie was doing. Like there's so many scenes that are kind of the same structure. Everyone kind of has the same, their dialogue, everyone sounds kind of the same. Like let's get a whole bunch of people in a circle and let's all just have them have like one line each. And there's so many scenes that are like that. And I felt like Simon Pegg doesn't even really have the personality that he had in like earlier films. Like again, everyone does a really great job. I love Pom Klementieff in this movie a lot. She has such great screen presence and I want to see more of her. And I was doing my little thing in my head where I was going, oh, if there's anyone I want to spin off, I would love to see more of Pom Klementieff in it. But I do think
the character with the least lines.
Yeah, right. I do think that the movie is a little self-indulgent in look how freaking serious we are. And I think that kind of weighs down the movie. There are sequences for sure that are 100% super duper entertaining. I wouldn't call this movie fun at all, though, and that's kind of like an emotion that I associate with it. I think there's like a line or two that's kind of fun. I think there's a sequence that is ultimately entertaining, which can equate to fun, but the overall vibe is something that I'm personally at conflict with. This is my point of view. I don't know what anyone else is going to think. I'm hearing Coy's point of view, which I love to feel your enthusiasm, and I could feel it while you were next to me. But as I was watching it, I was like, Greg! Yeah, but as I was watching it, I did find myself kind of checking out or a little bit bored during some of the dialogue scenes, and that was something that I would not say about earlier installments outside of Dead Reckoning, while I do think this one is actually better than Dead Reckoning.
I think my bar, because of Dead Reckoning, and I love everything I had to say because I definitely acknowledged and wrote those things away. Even as you're describing it, I was like, yeah, and I think I was really upset by Dead Reckoning, so I was just happier to be here. And so I think I had a lot of moments of like, yeah, but, and I don't know if that's fair, but I know when I'm watching the 8th installment of something, I'm going to think of 7, and then I'll think of 1 through 6. Like, I'm going to think of the most recent installment, installment, and that was personally a little bit of a disappointment for me because of how much I love this franchise. So I think there were two things at play. One, love of the franchise, love of seeing Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, love of seeing the incredible Rebecca Ferguson, and then there's, oh, it's also better than 7, and then that lands a little higher than maybe is deserved. But I don't disagree with a single thing you had to say, and there were moments where I was like, okay, you don't trust me because you've done this exposition about 3 times now. Yeah. But the problem was in Dead Reckoning, I think in our review we mentioned there were times that it went like 5 times.
Yeah.
In Dead Reckoning, there were moments where I was like, how dumb do you think I am? And then I felt like, oh, but I think this is a highbrow franchise. I think of this as intellectual. This one does temper that. It is still a little more than I'd like, but it is, I think, better than that. So I think a lot of my enjoyment, I'd give it like an 8.1, is because I wanted to like it more, and that helped me enjoy it. I think Rebecca Ferguson is one of those movie stars that doesn't have the name recognition she deserves. I mean, Hayley Atwell, I wires crossed. Hayley Atwell, I think, is one of those, Exhibit A, what I just said. I think she should be a name actress above the title. Like, she's got such presence. She's got this ability to be so full of commanding aura while delivering dialogue, while doing action, and that is what this movie brings, along with Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, Tom Cruise, and all those things. And we don't get that in a lot of movies in this genre. We don't get a lot of movies like this, so I think I might be more forgiving of Mission Impossible than I would be something else, but you're not wrong, and I don't think this is going to be for everyone. I think if you don't love Mission Impossible, this might rank lower for you.
Yeah. Out of a 3-hour movie, I think there's 4 action scenes, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think was kind of like dismaying some of the audience. Like, my favorite one is Mission Impossible 3, which is not hell-bent on nonstop action. That is very much like a thriller first, action adventure second, and very character-driven. So, like, I'm all about that. Whereas this is, you know, mainly like expositional shit. But there are some sequences that I can think of. Like, there's this one motif that they keep cutting to is like the people in charge of the country. And they keep cutting around to the boardroom there. And I like kind of this a few good men escalation of this like jury deciding the fate of the world. So some of those scenes that were only dialogue, I thought were great. It's not like every single scene that has dialogue is suddenly boring or something, but I did feel like a bit of that missing personality. However, man, for a movie theater experience, like, you really can't beat the couple of sequences that they do have that are like, it's worth watching just for this. Take any one of those sequences that we named. I think there's even more hand-to-hand combat than the last one.
And it's great.
And this movie does mostly, yeah. This movie doesn't have car chase scene, which I think a lot of the other ones kind of like consistently have that, right?
It's like an SUV underground chase.
For like 20 seconds. Yeah. It's pretty short.
All vehicles.
It's pretty short.
You're right. That's not a structured moment like the rest.
Yeah. But I like the horror. I like the menace. I like the entity implementation a lot more here. I like the fanatic commentary about like what happens with society if they start worshiping an AI.
I like the commentary on trust. I really enjoyed that. The we talked about it at the very beginning of this review.
I think AI decreases the distrust.
About trust.
Yeah.
And I really feel the stakes there relating to our world much more than the last one, where it felt like they somehow made AI mustache twirly. The last one somehow made a non-physical entity feel physically silly, and this one doesn't.
Right. I wouldn't give it an 8.1. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
But I would give that for like the theater experience. I would give like an 8 out of 10 for what they do with the action sequences alone. At home, I might even rank it a little bit lower. I don't know. I don't know yet.
Is it your second to last, third to last?
I would say it's the third to last. I love the car chase scene in Dead Reckoning. I like the train scene a lot on the rewatch of Dead Reckoning. But I think as an overall movie and for its intentions and it being like, I think Ethan Hunt is way more of an actual character this time around than in the last movie. I would make it like third to last. But yeah, these last couple Mission Impossibles have not really been the ultimate jam for me, because it was kind of like 3 through 6 are just incredible films.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. That's where the peak was, like Fast 5.
Yeah, I
think
there
in the middle.
I think the franchise should end, honestly. I'd be okay with it ending right here. And it kind of plays out in a way like, we can end this now. I was like, yeah.
Cameo. I mean, where are we? It's totally fair.
Uh-oh. Run!
Tom! Run! It's his final reckoning. He said the title out loud. Have a go, guys. His mission was possible. So, in conclusion, I definitely agree. Like 3 through 6 is kind of the peak, and I do think if it ended here, I'd be okay with that. But at the end of the day, I'm happy for a movie to feel like it's made for the theater by the man who makes movies to talk about being made for the theater.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Tom Cruise, as ever, for what you put your body and mind through for us.
Yeah, go watch it on IMAX. Go watch it on Dolby Cinema, one of the two, preferably IMAX, I would say, because I shoot it with IMAX cameras. I was hoping to be a little bit more over the moon. I was a lot more looking for the positives a lot more here. That first half hour really rough, first hour really rough, but it does get better as it goes, and that's like the ultimate conclusion that I can say, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. Please leave a like in this video for the old algorithm. Let us know if you catch it spoiler-free in the comments below what your thoughts were. Subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you soon for the next thing.